The night you almost gave up was the same night something unseen began moving toward you. You did not realize it then because nothing around you looked different. The same walls surrounded you. The same people spoke to you. The same worries followed you into silence. But deep inside there was a strange feeling you could not explain, almost like your spirit sensed a change before your eyes could recognize it. And that is why you are here reading these words right now, not by accident, not because of random timing, but because this moment was waiting for you long before you arrived here, before your finger stopped scrolling, before your heart paused for even 1 second. Something greater had already aligned this encounter, and if you walk away too quickly, you may miss the very message your soul has been needing in secret, because there are seasons where one single word can shift the direction of a tired heart, and one moment of understanding can end confusion that has lasted far too long. You have been carrying things quietly for longer than anyone knows, smiling in conversations while fighting battles no one could hear, pretending to stay strong while your mind replayed fears you never spoke aloud. And lately, there have been nights where your silence became heavier than words themselves, nights where you stared into darkness wondering why certain answers never arrived when you needed them most. But what you did not know is that your hidden prayers were never ignored. Every silent tear, every exhausted thought, every moment where your chest felt heavy without explanation was seen completely, because the Creator never overlooks a sincere heart, even when the world does. And while you questioned whether heaven noticed your pain, movements had already started around your future. Doors were already being redirected. Delays were already protecting you from paths that looked good, but carried destruction hidden behind them. Something unusual has been happening inside you. Recently, old distractions no longer satisfy you the way they once did. Conversations that used to entertain you now feel empty, and there are moments where your heart suddenly becomes restless without warning, almost as if something inside you is trying to wake up before the next chapter begins. That feeling is not meaningless, because before every major change there comes a season where the soul begins sensing movement before life reveals it outwardly, and many people mistake this inner stirring for confusion when in reality it is preparation. You have not been abandoned in your waiting. You have been shaped by it, molded through disappointments, strengthened through delays, purified through struggles that forced you to depend on patience when your emotions want immediate answers right now. There are people listening to this who feel tired beyond explanation, not physically tired but emotionally exhausted, exhausted from hoping too many times, exhausted from watching opportunities disappear, exhausted from carrying responsibilities while silently asking when relief will finally come. And maybe you stopped telling people what hurts because you became tired of explaining pain that nobody truly understood. Maybe you learned how to smile while your spirit quietly broke inside. Maybe you reached moments where you questioned if things would ever change. But hear this carefully, because what feels like the ending of your strength may actually be the beginning of your transformation. And sometimes the darkest nights arrive right before a new season breaks open unexpectedly. Do not ignore what your spirit has been feeling lately, because there are moments where destiny whispers before it speaks loudly. And what you call restlessness might actually be preparation for a shift you never imagined possible. Many people lose their breakthrough because they misinterpret transition as failure. They assume closed doors mean rejection when sometimes those closed doors are protection from futures that would have damaged them deeply, and you have no idea how many unseen dangers you were quietly rescued from while complaining about delays. There are connections you wanted that would have destroyed your peace. There are opportunities you cried over losing that would have drained your soul completely. There are people who walked away because their purpose in your life had already ended, even though you begged for them to stay. And listen carefully now, because this part matters more than you realize. What broke you recently did not destroy you, even though it felt unbearable at the time. That disappointment which kept replaying inside your mind, that betrayal you never fully recovered from, that loss nobody knew how deeply affected you, all of it shaped something inside your spirit that comfort could never produce. Because strength is not created when life is easy, wisdom is not formed when every prayer gets answered immediately, and maturity does not appear without moments that force the heart to grow through uncertainty. Your pain carried purpose even when it looked meaningless. Your waiting carried preparation even when it felt cruel, and your silence carried prayers that heaven understood perfectly, even without spoken words. There is a reason these words are reaching you at this exact moment, because your heart stands at a dangerous intersection between giving up and pushing forward, and what happens next depends on which voice you choose. To believe the voice of fear telling you nothing will change, or the quiet voice inside your spirit whispering that something greater is still coming, and if you pay attention you will notice that despite all your disappointments there remains a small piece of hope inside you, refusing to die completely. That surviving hope is not weakness, it is evidence that your story is not over yet, because when heaven places purpose over someone's life, it does not disappear simply because seasons become difficult. There were nights when you sat alone replaying conversations in your mind, wondering why people misunderstood your intentions, why loyalty was not returned the same way you gave it, why kindness sometimes brought pain instead of peace, and slowly disappointment began teaching you to hide your emotions deeper than before. But what nobody around you realized is that even while you looked calm outwardly, your inner world carried storms constantly, and there were moments where you wished someone would simply ask how you were truly doing, instead of assuming your silence meant strength. Yet even in those lonely moments you were never unseen. Every hidden sigh, every silent prayer, every exhausted breath reached heaven long before these words reached your screen today. You are entering a season where things will begin making sense slowly, not all at once, because clarity often arrives step by step, and soon you will look back at certain delays and thank the Creator they happened exactly the way they did. One day you will understand why specific doors stayed closed despite your begging. One day you will recognize why certain friendships collapsed even when you tried saving them. One day you will see that what looked like rejection was actually redirection towards something healthier. But until that understanding fully arrives, you must learn to trust without needing every answer immediately, because the heart that demands complete understanding before obedience often remains trapped in fear forever. Something powerful happens when a tired soul finally releases the pressure of controlling everything, and maybe that is what you need most right now. Not another sign, not another promise, not another explanation, but surrender. Real surrender, the kind where you stop forcing outcomes and begin trusting that what is meant for you cannot miss you, because some battles were never yours to carry alone, some burdens were too heavy for your heart by design, and maybe the exhaustion you feel comes from trying to control situations that only heaven can rearrange properly. There is peace waiting for you on the other side of release, peace that does not depend on perfect circumstances, peace that exists even before visible answers appear. Do not rush away from this message, because something inside your spirit needed this reminder more than you know. You have spent too much time believing your delays meant abandonment, when in reality many of those delays were positioning, and positioning rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. Sometimes it feels confusing, lonely, even unfair. But hidden beneath the discomfort there is alignment taking place, conversations shifting, opportunities forming, protection operating silently beyond your awareness, and while you worried about what was falling apart, the Creator was already arranging what comes next, behind the scenes in ways your eyes could not yet measure. The truth is you are closer to breakthrough than you realize, but breakthrough rarely announces itself loudly at first. Often it begins quietly inside the soul before circumstances catch up externally. That is why your spirit has felt different lately. That is why certain old habits no longer feel right. That is why your heart keeps sensing movement, even while your eyes still see waiting. And if you quit too early, you may walk away right before the very season you prayed for finally begins unfolding. Many people abandon hope moments before change arrives because exhaustion convinces them nothing is happening. But unseen movement does not mean absent movement, silence does not mean abandonment, and delay does not mean denial. There are blessings approaching your life that require a stronger version of you than the person you used to be. And that is why your process has been longer than expected, because preparation takes time when the future carries weight. You have been learning discernment through disappointment, patience through waiting, resilience through hardship, and dependence through uncertainty. None of it was wasted, even when it felt painful. Every difficult season developed something inside you that easy seasons never could, and soon the same struggles that once made you cry will become proof of how far you survived. Beyond what once tried breaking you completely, you may not realize it yet, but some of the greatest protection in your life came disguised as unanswered prayers. There were paths you wanted desperately that would have stolen your peace later. There were people you chased who were never meant to walk beside your destiny permanently, and there were opportunities you cried over missing that would have damaged your future in ways you could not foresee at the time. But heaven sees beyond temporary emotions, and mercy sometimes appears in the form of closed doors, even when the heart misunderstands them initially. One day your gratitude will replace confusion because perspective changes. Everything once time reveals what was hidden. Right now you must guard your thoughts carefully, because the mind becomes dangerous when disappointment speaks louder than faith, and lately fear has been trying to convince you that nothing will improve, that your waiting has no meaning, that your prayers changed nothing. But those thoughts are not truth. They are the voice of exhaustion trying to rewrite your future through hopelessness, and you cannot allow temporary feelings to define permanent conclusions about your life, because there is still purpose attached to your existence. Even after everything you survived, there is still goodness waiting ahead, even after seasons that nearly emptied your strength completely. Some people listening to this have been carrying guilt silently, guilt over mistakes, guilt over missed opportunities, guilt over things they wish they handled differently. But hear this clearly: your past does not disqualify you from mercy. Growth begins when you stop living chained to who you used to be and start believing transformation is possible, because every human being stumbles, every soul experiences weakness, every heart carries regrets, yet healing begins the moment you stop defining yourself only by what went wrong and start focusing on who you can still become through sincerity and patience. And maybe this is the moment where something finally shifts inside you, not outwardly yet but inwardly, because every lasting transformation begins within. First, before the doors open externally, before the answers appear visibly, before the circumstances change publicly, something changes privately in the heart, a decision to keep believing despite uncertainty, a decision to trust despite delay, a decision to continue walking even while clarity remains incomplete. And that quiet decision often becomes the foundation for everything that follows afterward in life. You are not forgotten, even when loneliness whispers otherwise. You are not abandoned, even when silence feels heavy, and you are not standing still spiritually, even if your circumstances appear unchanged outwardly. There are things unfolding beyond your current understanding, connections being arranged, protection being established, lessons being completed, and timing being perfected in ways only heaven fully sees right now. Your responsibility is not to control every detail, but to remain sincere, patient, and willing when your next step becomes clear. As you finish these words, take a deep breath and remember this carefully. The chapter you are in now is not the final chapter of your story. The exhaustion is not permanent. The confusion is not eternal. The waiting is not endless. And the pain you carried quietly will not define your future forever. Brighter days still exist ahead of you, even if your heart struggles imagining them right now, because after every season of difficulty there comes a season where understanding finally arrives, and when that moment comes, you will realize that even during your hardest nights, you were being guided more carefully than you ever knew. There are moments in life when everything around you appears normal to everyone else, yet inside your heart something feels unsettled in a way you cannot explain, and lately that feeling has been following you everywhere. During quiet mornings, during sleepless nights, during conversations where you smiled outwardly while your thoughts wandered somewhere deeper, because part of you has sensed that life cannot continue exactly the same forever. Part of you feels that a chapter is slowly closing, even before the next one fully appears, and that inner tension has made you restless, tired, and uncertain about what comes next. But what you must understand now is that transition often feels uncomfortable before clarity finally arrives, because the soul recognizes movement long before the eyes can confirm it. You have spent too much time carrying invisible weight while pretending everything was manageable, too much time holding together responsibilities while secretly wondering how much longer. Your heart could continue like this, and there were moments when even simple tasks felt exhausting because your spirit was drained from fighting battles nobody knew existed. Yet despite your exhaustion, you kept moving forward, you kept waking up, you kept trying, even on days where your faith felt weak and your mind was filled with questions. And that quiet endurance matters more than you realize, because many people would have collapsed under pressures you survived silently, even when you thought you were failing. Heaven saw strength developing inside you through every difficult moment you endured. There were nights where memories returned stronger than usual, nights where disappointment replayed itself repeatedly inside your mind, making you wonder why certain things happened the way they did, why people changed unexpectedly, why loyalty was not returned equally, why prayers seemed delayed beyond understanding, and slowly you began questioning not only situations around you but even yourself, wondering if you were somehow the reason things fell apart. But hear this carefully, because this truth may free something inside you today. Not every ending happened because you failed. Some endings happened because certain chapters could not continue into the future waiting for you. And although losing people or opportunities hurt deeply, some separations were necessary for your protection, even when your emotions resisted accepting it. Something important is happening in this season of your life, and if you misunderstand it, you may respond with fear instead of wisdom, because what looks like confusion on the surface may actually be preparation underneath. Many people expect transformation to arrive with immediate joy and visible certainty, but often real change begins with discomfort, separation, and inward stretching that forces the heart to grow beyond old limits. And maybe that explains why you no longer feel comfortable in places, habits, or relationships that once seemed familiar, because your spirit has started recognizing that you cannot carry old versions of yourself into the future waiting ahead. Growth always demands release before expansion becomes possible. Do not underestimate the value of everything you survived quietly, because hidden struggles shape people more deeply than public victories ever could. Your patience during unanswered prayers taught you resilience. Your disappointments taught you discernment. Your lonely seasons taught you dependence on something greater than human approval, and even the betrayals you experienced revealed truths about people that comfort would never have exposed. None of those painful moments were meaningless, even though they wounded you deeply at the time, because sometimes life removes illusions painfully before it reveals purpose clearly. And while you cried over what left your life, heaven was already making space for what truly belongs in your future right now. There are people listening who feel emotionally exhausted from waiting too long, waiting for healing, waiting for clarity, waiting for opportunities, waiting for peace. And after enough waiting, the mind begins creating dangerous thoughts, thoughts that whisper maybe nothing will ever improve, maybe your prayers changed nothing, maybe you are destined to remain stuck forever. But exhaustion is a liar when it speaks about your future, because temporary pain cannot predict permanent outcomes, and just because you cannot yet see visible evidence does not mean movement has stopped behind the scenes. There are things being aligned right now that your current perspective cannot fully recognize, yet you must stop measuring your progress only by visible results, because some of the most important transformations happen internally first. There are shifts taking place inside your heart that matter more than immediate outward success. You are becoming wiser about who deserves access to your energy, stronger about what you tolerate emotionally, clearer about what truly matters spiritually, and more aware of how temporary this world can be. These changes may not appear dramatic outwardly, but they are preparing you for decisions and opportunities ahead that require a more mature version of yourself than before. And one day you will realize that the waiting season shaped you far more powerfully than the arrival season ever could. Listen closely, because this next truth may explain why your heart has felt heavy. Recently, you have been trying to carry responsibilities and emotional burdens that were never meant to rest entirely on your shoulders. You keep replaying situations in your mind, searching for answers you cannot force into existence, trying to control outcomes that only heaven can arrange properly, and slowly that pressure has been draining your peace day after day. But there comes a moment where healing begins, not because circumstances instantly improve, but because the soul finally releases what it cannot control. And maybe that release is exactly what your spirit needs now, more than another explanation or another sign. You were not created to live trapped inside constant fear about tomorrow, constantly worrying whether things will work out, constantly analyzing every possibility until your mind becomes exhausted, because fear steals peace from moments that have not even happened yet, and many of the things you worried about never unfolded the way you imagined anyway, yet the stress still consumed your energy unnecessarily. There is wisdom in planning, but there is destruction in living permanently consumed by anxiety, and the heart that never rests eventually forgets how to trust completely, which is why you must learn to surrender outcomes you cannot fully control and focus instead on remaining sincere, patient, and faithful in the present moment, there are blessings approaching your life that require emotional healing before they arrive fully, because unhealed pain has a way of turning even beautiful opportunities into fearful experiences, and maybe that is why your process has taken longer than expected, not because you were forgotten, but because preparation sometimes includes repairing the heart internally before external changes appear visibly. You cannot carry bitterness into places meant for peace. You cannot carry constant fear into seasons meant for growth, and you cannot receive fully while your hands remain tightly gripping disappointment from the past. Healing requires release, and release requires trust even when understanding feels incomplete. Some people listening right now still feel wounded by words spoken against them years ago. Criticism that stayed in the mind longer than it should have, rejection that quietly shaped insecurity inside them, moments where they felt unwanted, unseen, or not enough, and even now those old experiences sometimes return unexpectedly during quiet moments. But your worth was never determined by human opinions. Temporary rejection cannot erase the value placed within you by your Creator, and just because certain people failed to recognize your sincerity does not mean your existence lacks meaning, because many times people reject what they do not understand, and misunderstanding does not diminish your purpose. You are approaching a season where hidden truths will slowly reveal themselves, not always dramatically, but clearly enough for your spirit to recognize what once confused you. Certain relationships will finally make sense, certain delays will reveal hidden mercy, certain painful endings will show themselves as protection rather than punishment, and although understanding may arrive later than you wished, it will still arrive at the exact moment your heart is finally ready to handle it properly, because some truths revealed too early would have overwhelmed you emotionally instead of helping you grow wisely. Do not allow temporary loneliness to convince you that you are permanently alone, because there is a difference between isolation and preparation, and many times life pulls people into quieter seasons before important growth occurs internally. Those lonely nights where you felt forgotten were also teaching you how to depend less on constant validation from others and more on inner strength, patience, and spiritual awareness. And although loneliness hurt deeply at times, it also revealed parts of yourself you may never have discovered while constantly surrounded by distractions and noise. There were moments when you almost gave up completely, moments when continuing forward felt pointless because nothing seemed to improve despite your efforts, but somehow you kept surviving one more day, one more night, one more disappointment, and that endurance matters because survival itself became proof that something greater still exists ahead of you. If your story were truly over, you would not still feel that quiet desire inside to keep searching for hope. Even after all the exhaustion, there remains a part of your spirit refusing to surrender completely, and that surviving hope is evidence that purpose still lives within you. Despite everything you faced, be careful not to compare your journey with other people, because comparison destroys peace faster than almost anything else. You see someone else succeeding and wonder why your process feels slower. You watch others celebrate breakthroughs while your own prayers seem unanswered, but every soul carries different timing, different tests, different preparation, and different responsibilities. What arrives quickly for someone else might destroy you if received before your character and wisdom are ready, and what feels delayed in your life may actually be protected timing, designed specifically for your future. Trust that your path does not need to look identical to anyone else's in order to still carry meaning and blessing. Something powerful happens when a person stops chasing every closed door and begins trusting that what belongs in their life will remain without constant forcing. And maybe this season is teaching you exactly that lesson, teaching you to stop exhausting yourself trying to convince people to stay, trying to force opportunities to happen, trying to hold together situations that are already falling apart naturally, because peace enters the heart when surrender replaces desperation, and many of your greatest breakthroughs will happen not through panic and striving, but through calm. Trust that what is written for you cannot be stolen by delay, rejection, or temporary confusion. The future ahead of you carries more possibility than your current emotions allow you to see right now, because pain narrows perspective and exhaustion clouds vision. But one day your heart will breathe easier again. One day laughter will return naturally without feeling forced. One day peace will replace the constant tension you have been carrying silently. And one day you will wake up realizing that The hardest season of your life did not destroy you after all. It transformed you into someone wiser, stronger, more patient, and more aware of what truly matters beyond temporary struggles. You are not standing at the end of your story right now. Even if certain chapters closed painfully, you are standing in the middle of a process still unfolding step by step, and processes rarely make sense while you are living through them, but clarity often appears later when you finally look back and see how every painful piece connected together unexpectedly. Until then, keep moving carefully, keep protecting your peace, keep strengthening your faith, and keep believing that unseen mercy is operating even during seasons where answers remain incomplete. As you finish reading these words, remember this deeply. Your delays did not cancel your destiny. Your pain did not erase your purpose. Your failures did not make you worthless. And your exhaustion does not mean heaven abandoned you. Something greater is still unfolding quietly beyond your current understanding. Doors are still capable of opening, healing is still capable of arriving, peace is still capable of returning, and your future still carries moments beautiful enough to make surviving these difficult seasons worthwhile in the end.